So Jujutsu Kaisen's manga is nearing its highly anticipated endgame, with Gojo, Yuji, and the other main cast of characters doing everything they can to stop Kenjaku, the most sinister sorcerer in history, and the king of curses in Sukuna. Now, over the course of JJK's most iconic stretches of the series, character deaths have always been the highlight of the storytelling. At this point, an average JJK fan had to have been traumatized at least 5 times over with these deaths. And if we know one thing about Gege, he'll kill off anyone. And with the final fight approaching and a statement from Gege himself saying he would end the story this year, an ending for such a groundbreaking series is bound to be filled with the endings of some of our favorite characters. But which of the main cast won't make it to happily ever after, or knowing Gege simply alive ever after? In today's video, I'm going to be entering my prediction and hot take bag to cover some characters that I believe will meet their maker and how. Anyway, subscribe to the channel for more base Jujutsu Kaisen content like this, turn on post notifications, and most importantly, let me know who you think Gege is giving the axe. Without further ado, into the RIP Fest. Now for starters, I really don't anticipate for the last stretch of chapters to be a death fest like Shibuya or the perfect preparation was. There was a statement from Gege saying he plans on ending this series this year, and without counting any breaks, that would mean 22 more chapters for the final arc. And if we were counting breaks, that's around 17 or 18 chapters in actuality. So just a little under 20 chapters to wrap up such a phenomenon of a series. And currently in the manga right now, the Gojo vs Sukuna fight isn't even over yet. So unless Gege just plans on throwing some of our fan favorites and the rest of the fighting force into a fight with Sukuna and Kenjaku and simply have them start to fall one by one, which would make zero sense, either the series simply isn't ending this year or we're getting a bloodfest to wrap it up. And I'm willing to lean toward Jujutsu Kaisen lasting through 2023 and into 2024, which will allow us to get some closure on the cast journey. But Gege is one of the authors in Jump that will completely throw us for a spin. I'm pretty sure there was an interview somewhere where he said the choice to kill Nanami Shibuya was on a whim. And there is valid arguments for some of the main characters not making it to that final chapter whenever that is. And now we'll cover those arguments. So for starters, and seeing as this fight is currently captivating the entire JJK fandom and honestly Shonen Jump fans in general, I mean, have you seen the memes? We have the dilemma of Gojo and Sukuna in their endgame battle. Now as I'm recording this video, we are currently 8 chapters into the fight. While every chapter feels like a new peak for the clash, it's clear that we're starting to reach the final stages. With domain expansions being rolled out for both sides due to pure exhaustion and not many options in either of their arsenals besides a completely new technique or attack. Sukuna, we know you have like a million techniques, use one of them. But because this particular video focuses on potential deaths, I am forced to make a decision on who comes out on top between the two sorcerers regarded to be the strongest of their respective eras. But being honest, it's clear Gojo would embarrass a Hey Nair Sukuna any day of the week at the time chapter 231 was released. Do not come at me when he finally uses that shrine curse technique of his. When it comes to who dies as a result of the fight, unfortunately, all signs point to Gojo, or at least some severe injury. Sukuna, while not the evil mastermind Kenjaku is, has been propped up as the big bad, a doomsday opponent, someone whose mere presence strikes fear into every single character other than Satoru Gojo. Gojo is even confident enough to say that he would beat a 20-finger Sukuna, a level of power he's currently at, yet he's still getting smacked around by the way, all the way back at the beginning of the series. And like I've said, Gojo is definitely backing up that talk and dragging around the King of Curses like a ragdoll, but Sukuna on the other hand will never beat the Fraud Kun allegations. Even then, I didn't make this video to discuss things on the power scaling side of things, but on the narrative side of things. So even with all this, why does it still make sense for Gojo to get the axe? And one of the reasons is simply due to the existence of Kenjaku, the true sinister mastermind of the final arc, whose goal is to assimilate all of humanity with cursed energy through Tengen just for the fun of it. While there was a stretch of time in the series where many believe Kenjaku is at this godly level of power, while with characters like Gojo and Sukuna, yeah, that's not the case at all. Back in chapter 221, an unsealed Gojo confronts Kenjaku, who was literally sweating at the idea of Gojo in front of him. Kenjaku is strong, I mean he did take on Yuki, a special grade sorcerer, and Chozo at the same time, but Gojo is the mere definition of the strongest. Kenjaku is lucky Sukuna is there to take all the heat, because if Gojo got his hands on that body hopper, the series will literally end right there, which is something Kenjaku is aware of and the reason why we won't see such a scenario. Now, Gojo's first action after getting unsealed was killing Kenjaku, seeing as he's in Geto's body, but was prevented by Sukuna. Narratively, Kenjaku still has a whole lot to do besides getting curb stomped by Gojo, and it's already been stated he would have to face the heavy hitters of Jutsu High like a Hakari or a Maki. So if Gojo isn't meant to face Kenjaku, it all points to Gojo being stopped by Uraume and Sukuna. And not only is Kenjaku equipped with the highest level of plot armor to live past his fights and quite literally is untouchable, or at least by the main man in Gojo, basically so is Sukuna. We still have characters like Yuta or Kashimo that have been propped up to be the stand-ins if or once Gojo inevitably loses. I mean, what are you gonna tell Kashimo, who's probably doing stretches while watching Gojo and Sukuna and has been waiting hundreds of years to get in the ring with history's strongest sorcerer? That is literally his only purpose as a character. You simply can't have him sit around and do nothing or fight Kenjaku, the man who brought him back for the past as like some consolation prize. He has to fight Sukuna, as well as Yuji probably jumping in at one point to save Megumi, or maybe a surprise appearance from the bar back from the dead. Gojo will not be the one to deliver the finishing blow. And while I love Gojo to death, it seems like his story, or rather role in the series, has been wrapped up for the most part. His purpose was to raise the next generation of sorcerers to be so strong that the brash and often discriminative conservative rules of Jujutsu society wouldn't be able to contain them. And if we take a look, he's kinda already succeeded. I mean, not only was the higher ups of Jujutsu society that have been beefing with Gojo for years shown to be murdered right before the Gojo Sukuna fight, but with students of Gojo like Yuta, a special grade and someone with more cursed energy than him, Maki, a fighter on the level of Toji, the only man alive to give Gojo trouble besides Sukuna, and Hakari, who openly defies the higher ups and when he's on a lucky streak, can gain access to unlimited cursed energy and automatic healing. Gojo has done his part and succeeded his goal in the story. Sukuna and Kenjaku still have a role to play. So yeah, Gojo's death is kinda written on the wall. Or if we want to be really lenient to Gojo's case, I guess a severe injury that would prevent him from fighting or being the strongest would work too. I kinda have a theory that Gojo might lose his 6 sides in this fight because that would mean he couldn't use the limitless technique, or at least at a high enough level to fight Sukuna, as a common misconception is that the 6 sides limitless are 1, which isn't true. The 6 sides, which already grant the user vast perception, is needed to utilize limitless to its full power. So yeah, take out his eyes and Gojo really loses the ability to be the strongest, and Sukuna will most likely take the dub and Kashimo or Yuta would step in. And most definitely remember this theory on this video if it actually happens. Overall, Gojo is definitely on the chopping block. Another character I really don't see making it to the end is Hakari, a third-year student of Jutsu High, one of the proclaimed heavy hitters, and a fighter who will gamble everything including his life in order to win. Now I just want to make it clear, Hakari is one of my favorite characters in the series along with Gojo. Just because I think they're gonna die doesn't mean I still don't think they can be awesome characters. And Hakari is definitely one of those characters. I mean, unlimited curse energy, more like unlimited hype. Ever since his introduction in chapter 155, in which he explains his motivations, and eventually when we got to see his abilities, I knew Hakari was just going to be one of those characters that reached their peak or went as far as they could go in the final fight and not a second before. And I went a little bit deeper into the enigma that is Hakari in a previous video, but practically Hakari lives and operates based on one's fever. A fever being a trance of constant gambling and a willingness to live your life on the edge. And he embodied exactly that in his mega hype train of a fight with Kashimo, where he saw Hakari on death's door multiple times just to be saved last second by a lucky gamble. Hakari's motivation in the story is to attain and cultivate this ultimate fever, which is exactly what I think he will fulfill in the final arc. Now, Kenjaku has already announced Hakari to be one of the heavy hitters that will potentially come after him to stop his plan during or most likely after the Gojo fight. And I'm putting on my theorizing / hot take hat for this one, but me personally, I would love to see a scenario where the heavy hitters along with the rest of the fighting force of sorcerers, they got a headquarters. I swear they have like 5 adult grade 1 sorcerers all in one place simply to commentate on the Gojo fight. But yeah, they all go to confront Kenjaku, but are maybe on some sort of time limit to stop his plan. And Kenjaku, needing to slow them down, releases an army of special grade cursed spirits, stronger than we've ever seen them before. As we know, Kenjaku can further amp his cursed spirits with cursed energy. I mean, we might even get to see Mahito again, and considering Kenjaku did use Geto's curse manipulation to absorb him at the end of Shibuya. Anyway, Hakari in his jackpot mode decides to stay behind to face his army of special grades while the others go on ahead, which in my opinion would be the perfect way for Hakari to reach the highest fever he's ever had, even higher than his fight with Kashimo. I mean, just imagine him barreling through special grade curses with their domains and their techniques with nothing but pure power and a stroke of luck, well until he just loses that luck. Overall, a fitting end for such an outlier of a character. Following Hakari, we're going to be getting a little bit biased here with the dilemma of Megumi. Now me personally, no, I don't think we've seen the last of Megumi. I do have a personal theory which I'll explain later in the video on how I think Megumi's character will end, and yes, it does come with the possibility of his death, but again, I do think we'll see him one more time before the series actually ends. Throughout this entire Gojo and Sukuna fight so far, saving Megumi hasn't really been a factor that's been talked about. This dude Gojo cares about is giving Sukuna them hands regardless if he's beating up a body of a 16-year-old. He really is giving Megumi that same treatment he got when he was a teenager. But yeah, I don't know how, I don't know when, maybe Gojo figures it out, but I'm willing to officially declare my prediction that we're going to see Megumi again, because it just makes sense. As in, there's no way Gege's willing to traumatize us this much. But next for a character I actually believe is going to die, it just really depends on how. Going out strong and looking epic or getting laid out on the canvas. We have Hajime Kashimo, a reincarnated sorcerer from 400 years ago, brought into the presence for one and only one purpose, to fight Sukuna, the strongest in history. Now similar to Hakari, which is kind of ironic seeing as they happen to be the ones to fight each other, Kashimo really is a linear character whose purpose really only revolves on an overall basic goal, to kill Sukuna for the zeal of being the strongest. Seeing Kashimo as one of the strongest in his era, if not the strongest, with the only competition at the time being Ryu, and aspired to be able to fight someone who could give him a challenge. Like I said, he's not taking any consolation prize to Kenjaku, he has to fight the King of Curses. And we already have foreshadowing and a build up towards this in a narrative sense, as Kashimo intentionally did not use his curse technique against Hakari, as he can only use it once and he intends to use it on Sukuna. So I definitely anticipate the reincarnated sorcerer to jump in at some point and literally shock the world with a CT. I highly doubt he makes it out alive from the Sukuna fight or to the end of the series, simply because of his purpose solely being fighting Sukuna. I mean, what is he even supposed to do if he survives? He's from like 400 years ago, and is literally using an innocent person's body as we speak to host his soul. Which is kind of weird to me that the main cast of characters are just cool with that, considering that they probably wouldn't be in the case of Yorozu's soul and Megumi's sister. But yeah, Kashimo goes berserk against Sukuna and gets his I am the strongest moment. I've seen some theories that maybe using a CT requires his life or a huge amount of it, and maybe he just perishes in the process. Or for all I know, he might just live on and join Hakari's new fight club post the events of the series. I mean, I would want to see it. Now for the sake of covering all bases, even though I think it's pretty obvious, we have Sukuna and Kenjaku. Unless Gege really wants to be crazy different and have the bad guys win at the end, there is absolutely no reason for Sukuna and Kenjaku to make it out of here. Especially when considering, unlike a lot of other shonen out there really isn't any other minions to take the hits for them or occupy any of the good guys. It's simply those two big bad antagonists. So yeah, sure, they can take out 99% of the series on a 1v1 basis. But as soon as the Gojo fight ends, they'll be hit with the full force of Jujutsu High and their allies. I mean, they do have Uraume, and let's just get this straight because I know she got some fans out there. Another character I think that will probably die, because we know that they were with Sukuna at the start of the fight in chapter 223, right when Gojo completely discombobulated the building they were standing on. And unless they're just a sorry character and died to Gojo's Hollow Purple in the beginning of the fight, I could definitely see a scenario where Gojo or somebody severely injures Sukuna, and Uraume pulls up to maybe either take some hits for Sukuna, I mean, Shorty did the first time with Gojo, or help unlock some other power of his. As well as there being a fight set up for maybe Chozo and Uraume, seeing as Chozo might be the one to occupy Uraume when Yuji eventually pulls up to try to save Megumi. But again, that's really just final arc predictions general, and this is about deaths, and overall she lives for and will die for Sukuna. Moving on, I'm going to keep it a buck here. I am actively rooting for either Mei Mei or Ui Ui to kick the bucket this arc. Gege needs to beat the writing incest allegations, and they're just overall a weird duo. Now, I'm kind of still a fan of Mei Mei because, you know what I'm saying, she grade 1 and she bad doing it, but I could still see her dying in the fights against Kenjaku. I definitely think she's strong enough to join in, and perhaps Gege uses her death to convey the consequences of greed, or for, as he once called it, risk diversification, meaning she'll switch sides anytime it benefits her. And we know that Ui Ui, her little brother, has some teleportation capabilities, so maybe he's the one transporting the likes of Kashimo or Yuta to where Gojo and Sukuna are fighting. And Sukuna, seeing this, would then kill Ui Ui to stop the good guys from transporting anyone else to jump him. Or maybe they get another duo fight against a special grade curse Kenjaku releases and die anyway. I don't really care how, but they need to go. Now for the next and final character of the video, who funny enough was on the same team as Mei Mei and her little brother going into the Shibuya arc, we have Yuji Itadori, the main character of the series. Also using this opportunity to now talk about the Megumi theory I had of him dying, which I mentioned earlier in the video. But first, Yuji is a very unique case because I really don't want to get into whether he is or he's not the main character and all the allegations that comes with it, because I feel like someone simply interprets the story how they interpret it. And whether you would like to think that Yuji is the main character and someone that you pay attention to, that's up to you. And while I will admit Gege probably doesn't feature Yuji or have him as the centerpiece of the story, at least blatantly, as much as the other shonen mangakas do, which is a style of writing I absolutely have no problem with. No matter your thoughts on that issue, Yuji definitely still has a major role to play, whether that be saving Megumi or stopping Kenjaku, his father, and both of those have been foreshadowed heavily. Kenjaku in chapter 203 during his little bout with Chojo even calls Yuji the Eye of the Storm of a new age, the age of curses he's trying to bring about. Seeing as Yuji, who has all been but confirmed to be some hybrid between a cursed spirit and a human, and overall just the perfect integration of cursed energy into humanity that Kenjaku is intrigued by. And a bit of a sidetrack here, which I'm sort of notorious for, but technically Yuji would be someone like Geto's dream goal, a human with the capacity of cursed energy and yet doesn't contribute to the creation of cursed spirits, thus ending the cycle that kinda made him an advocate for genocide. While he may not be the one the story revolves around, he is still responsible for moving the same story forward. I mean, Yuji said it himself, he's simply a cog in the system. But does Yuji make it to that final page? So Yuji is a character whose death was literally explicitly stated from the beginning, with the plan being to kill him the moment he found and ate all of 20 Sukuna's fingers. But seeing as Yuji is no longer Sukuna's host, and we learn in chapter 2023, which heavily implies that Gojo never intended on letting that execution happen, is Yuji still on the chopping block? A question I'm going to go ahead and say no to. Now, Yuji has always been willing to help people no matter the cost to him, an ideology imprinted on him from his grandfather, and especially to those that he feels he has burdened, and would sacrifice himself to lessen that burden on others without a second thought. This was just recently shown from the little Yuji interactions we get to see these days in chapter 200, where Angel tells Megumi and Yuji that her goal is to kill Sukuna, and only then will she remove Gojo from the prison realm. Yuji, hearing this, wasn't even bothered by this dilemma and was totally prepared with the reality of his death to bring back Gojo, who would then save everyone. He often sees his presence as a disservice to those around him, like Megumi, because of the fact Sukuna was in him, something that only occurred due to his choice to eat that finger. Although we learn later down the line that that was supposed to happen due to Kenjaku's plan. Overall, I'm not gonna lie, Yuji has been on a word that starts with an S, I'm not gonna say on YouTube, watch for nearly the entire series. But in all honesty, I actually do see the possibility of a happy ending for Yuji, with the possibility depending on a sacrifice, one that involves Megumi. I genuinely believe if Yuji was ever put in the position where he had to sacrifice himself to save Megumi, Megumi would not let that happen. If you look back at chapter 200, Megumi clearly had a problem with the idea of Yuji giving himself up to Angel in order to kill Sukuna, thus killing himself in order to save everyone. And in Megumi's eyes, he's already lost his sister, one of the only things he generally cares about in this world, due to his mistakes. And it's not like he has to stay around to change the Zenin clan, considering they're all dead due to Maki. It's really sad to say, but Megumi doesn't have much to live for. And I wouldn't be surprised if it came down to it having to be Yuji and Megumi when it comes to the sacrifice. I also did theorize Gojo's dead, so maybe the father and son duo meets in the afterlife and actually meets the real daddy of them both in Toji. Overall, a major sacrifice will come into play this final arc, which I definitely think will involve Megumi, Yuji, maybe even Gojo, but definitely Yuji. And that wraps it up for the characters I think are definitely on the chopping block, and for any other character I didn't mention, either they're chopped liver like Momo or Panda, who aren't going to be in fighting situations, narrative implications that would keep them alive like Chozo, whose path is to live a human rather than a curse, or someone like Miwa or Yuta, or Gege simply has written them off the story with most of the fandom giving up on you coming back just for you to have some mega comeback that is just so hype and internet breaking and simply just so monumental to my mental health. There's literally no way in hell Gege would even come close to the idea of killing them off. Nobara, Todo, it's all on you guys. Overall, if there are any of those characters or the stands of those characters, I expect you to be spared from Gege's iconic acts. So yeah, this is the end of the video. I would love to do another one where I actually talk about what I predict will happen for the rest of the final arc, which will probably end up just being a Todo and Nobara hype video. But if you enjoyed base Jujutsu Kaisen content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more, turn on post notifications so you never miss a video, and most importantly, do your best to defend your favorite character making it to the end in the comments, because I'm definitely intrigued to see what you all think. But without further ado, we are ending with a message to Todo. Kenjaku literally killed your sensei, put a cursed tool on that stump of yours, and get your get back. Have a nice day.